I definitely learned from it, even though I was so young. I lived it.
Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, the podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the First Year Marriage Podcast. We wanted to apologize for the episode we missed. Our youngest had her first birthday, and we took a short vacation, and the girls got to experience the cold Maine ocean for the first time. We hope you enjoy this episode. For all the links and resources mentioned in this episode and the show notes, visit firstyearmarriage.com/39. Enjoy the show.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show podcast. I am your host, Marcus Kusi, and our guest for this week is Alison Chrun from California. Alison has been married for 8.5 years. She's mom to 2 boys, and presently she's pursuing her master's degree in marriage and family therapy. She is a writer with her own blog, which can be found at appetiteforhonesty.com, and also writes for other large blogs such as The Scary Mommy and The Huffington Post. Alison, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today and to share your story with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, thank you, Marcus, so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today with you guys. So I started my blog about 5 years ago, and it was something more personal for myself and just a way for me to express myself with my writing. And it's grown into quite a large blog, larger than I was expecting. And I spend a lot of time writing on that blog, but more so I spend a lot of time writing for other large blogs. And I'm also working in the mental health field. And I have 2 little boys. And like you said, I've been married for 8.5 years. And I'm also pursuing my master's. So I'm very busy and my life is very busy, but as much as I can, I find time for writing.
It looks like you have a passion for writing.
I do, very much so. And that's something very close to my heart. So I try to do it as much as I can.
How are you able to allocate time to write irrespective of how busy you are, especially with your kids?
Honestly, I don't really know how to answer that because as much as I do write a lot actually, and I really don't have the time. So I find the time when I can, if my youngest son is napping or if I have to stay up till like midnight, I'll do that, because I put the kids to bed and then it's like I only have a few hours to myself. So really it's just whenever I can sneak in an hour or 2, I do it.
That's very interesting to know. So I know you are going to school to pursuing your master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've been learning, how you think it can help our listeners with their marriage. But before we get into that section, can you tell us how you met your husband and what you guys, when you guys decided to get married, like how everything went from meeting until marriage and some of the experiences that you had as a married couple?
Yeah, absolutely. I met my husband. I was in junior college and he was pursuing his bachelor's. And we met in my hometown at this kind of bar restaurant place. But I'm going to be honest, we were there for the bar part. And so we were in our early 20s and we met each other out. We honestly were inseparable from that moment on. I think we went on our first date shortly after that, and we have been together ever since. We just clicked, and I think one of the biggest things was that we wanted the same things out of life, and we were both at the same place in our life. And I think that's really important, is the timing when you meet somebody, because you can meet the greatest person in the world, and if they're not ready or you're not ready, you can't really change that. And we were both in that same place. Things moved really fast. We moved in together 2 months after we met. We knew we wanted to be together forever. So We had made the commitment pretty much right off the bat, but we didn't have any intentions on getting married for at least a few years down the line. And about 3.5 years after we were dating, he proposed, but I did know it was coming. So I would say about 6 months before he proposed, I knew it was going to be soon.
From when did you know it was going to be soon? Was it like when you were 2 years into your relationship or 1 year into your relationship?
Well, I knew that we discuss everything. So I'm really not one of those people that's afraid to tell you how I feel. So he knew that eventually I wanted to get married, and I knew he wanted to get married, but we were in no rush at that time. So I would say once we hit the 3-year mark, we were really serious about, okay, when do we think this is going to happen? Because we were approaching our mid-20s and we knew we wanted to have children. So it was like a mutual, like, yeah, it's coming soon. And then it all just kind of happened really fast after that within those 6 months.
That's really, really good. I know it's like for us, for instance, we didn't date for that long, but I know once you know that this is the person you want to be with and you guys are on the same page in terms of what you want to do with your lives and what you see as your future, it makes everything a whole lot easier.
Oh yeah, it's smooth. It's like there's no work involved, There's a lot of relationships where you're trying to make somebody kind of get on the same page with you. And if you're just with somebody that's on the same page, the ease is there and it flows so much easier, and it's not that work that you see people go through.
Yeah. So how would you describe your first year of marriage? Like if you had to pick one word to describe everything that went through from the adjustment period to the struggles to the exciting times that you guys had, what one word would it be?
I think exciting is a good word for that. And it's funny because the first year of marriage, it's not like a whole lot had changed. It was like a different feeling in the air. Like, wow, we're married now. It's this like, you just feel so grown and you feel like we made this decision together, and you feel like this team and that closeness that you had never really felt before. And so it's that newness, even though nothing's really changed except like a piece of paper, but it's that commitment to each other. So I think that in itself was just super exciting for us.
I can definitely see how not just the piece of paper, but the commitment aspect, because once you get married, I've decided to commit myself or the rest of my life to this person and to live a happy life with them, to help them achieve their goals, and in return they're also going to help me achieve my goals. So I can really see how the commitment changes everything with you guys. And I'm curious to know, since you guys lived together for about 2 or 3 years before you guys got married, after you got married, was there any adjustments that you guys had to go through during that first year at all, even though you lived together prior to getting married?
Yeah, I think there were a lot. There was, first comes the paperwork, and like I'm changing my name and I'm changing every single thing, your social security card, your driver's license, everything. But I would say the biggest adjustment for us was joining bank accounts, combining our money, and becoming one in the aspect of marriage, but then also becoming one in the aspect of finances. And for some people, they do that right off the bat when they're dating somebody. My husband and I, we did not. It's not that we kept our money super separate. It was just we each had our own bank accounts. And so to combine that, it was new for me. And it was like, I worked really hard for my money and he works really hard for his money. And so what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. So that was really new. And it was only, I would say, a struggle in the sense of we had never done that before. And so we knew we were going to plan to have a family. And so we wanted to start saving for that family. And so we kind of gave ourselves an allowance with like play money, I would probably call it, kind of right off the bat when we were deciding to save. And so that was different, to give myself like a budget, and it's like you get all these new responsibilities a little by little. So that was interesting for us.
I can see how that change will be, because when you're living alone, you go to work, you get a paycheck, it's your money. You can decide to buy whatever ice cream you want, whatever clothing you want to buy. You can decide to give your money away if you want to. You can get your paycheck and then, hey, I met this guy on the road, so I decided to give that person my paycheck, and then, that's it for you. But once you get married, you cannot actually do that. You have to talk to your spouse about it and see what's the best way to go about spending that money. Because you are together as a married couple, everything is one, and that one is something that I think changes once you get married and makes marriage a whole lot more different than when you were dating.
Right, for sure. And you have to consult with the other person. You have to, run everything by them. And it's not like I had to run, every single purchase by him, but it's like, those big decisions and you can see what each other is purchasing if you just log onto your bank account. It's like nothing's a secret anymore. Nothing is private. Nothing is it's just everything is really exposed. And so you do have to consult and communicate with your spouse about those things. It's super important.
With your merging of bank accounts, I know there are probably one or two couples who are listening to us today who are probably going through that same situation whereby they've now decided, okay, we're going to merge our accounts, or we want to try to merge our accounts. Can you walk us through the steps that you guys did that make it a whole lot smoother for you guys to be able to merge your accounts and your spending activities so that you could feel that oneness with everything that you were doing?
Yeah, I do know couples that have separate accounts, and it's not a bad thing. I think that is just a choice that you make, and I'm actually not opposed to that at all. I feel like if your independence is something that's, extremely important to you and you take a lot of pride in that and you want to keep your own separate account, I think that is honorable and that's fine. And if you're thinking about merging your bank accounts, I would say to just be really clear before you do so on what you expect from each other. What is your budget like? What are you saving for? What are you able to kind of play with? I would walk through those steps with each other and really just communicate everything and get it all out there. Because if there's anything that you're doubting as far as finances are concerned, it's gonna come to the surface. It's gonna show up once you do merge those accounts. And so it's better to kind of get it all out in the open before and just see what you expect from each other, and then be able to. I think it'll work a lot smoother that way.
From what you are saying, it's more about figuring out your expectations that, okay, we are going to put our money together. This is what I expect us to do. So it's not like, okay, we are putting our money together, but when you get your paycheck, you can take $500 and then do whatever you want to do with it without me knowing about it.
For sure. I think that if that's what you decide to do, that's what you decide to do, because we had a little allowance each of us, and I never questioned him what he did with that. I mean, that was his to play with and his to do, and vice versa. So I think that still gives you some of that independence. And even if you choose not to do that, however you choose to do it, I think that it can work out, and there's always different ways to do things.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways to do things because
Sure.
what worked for one couple might not work for the other couple.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think that is something that a lot of couples need to realize that, something might work for I and Ashley, but it might not work for you guys.
Right. And that is super important to understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So after you guys got married, you're going through all of these adjusting period, measuring your finances and trying to know each other's family and everything. Can you tell us some of the tough decisions that you guys had to make and how you think that really helped you guys during that first year, apart from the money measuring that you guys had to do?
Yeah, so the first year was really big for us because we, like I said, had decided to start a family, and we got pregnant 3 months after we got married, and that was it just seemed to happen so much faster, kind of, than you think it's going to. That was exciting. It was terrifying, all in the same. And we also bought our first home in that same year. So I would say we grew up really fast in that first year. It was an amazing and exciting time, but it was also really stressful because, welcoming a new life into your family, never doing that before is something that is kind of like a shock to the system, and it kind of rocked our worlds in the best way. But that was definitely something that we kind of had to process together, and we learned together and we grew together, and it was this whole new experience, both buying a house and having a child.
That's really interesting to know that upon the adjustment period I guess we're going through, you're expecting a baby and you also bought your first home, which is a big deal for a lot of couples. If there's anybody listening to us today, let's say an engaged couple or a newlywed or married couple, and they have kids, but they've not bought their house yet. What will you tell them? Would you tell them they should go ahead and buy a house, or they should wait a little bit, maybe after a year or two that they've had the kids before they go ahead to buy the house?
If there's people out there who decide they want to buy a house before they have kids, and I think that's admirable. And then there's the people who are like, no, I want to focus on having children, and the house will come when the house comes, and that is also a great thing too. For us, we were really focused on having a family, and then when the house decision came, it was really because it was within our means. And I think that if you're just wanting to buy a house just to say you own a home, I don't think that's a good decision, just only because it's like, what if it's not in your means? What if it's something that you really can't afford at the time? Or it will just become more like another stressor in your relationship. So if you are financially stable and buying a home is within your means, and you want a new home or a house, for your family and to own, I think that's wonderful. And I think that's every couple, they're really their own personal decision. And I think every couple, like we said, is so different that works into their lifestyle, then that's great. And if not, renting is wonderful, renting homes, renting apartments, all of those things, depending on where you live and where you're at in your life is all admirable and something, kind of like a personal decision for everybody. So
that is very, very true, because like, as for instance, we haven't bought a house yet, but it's something that we plan to do in the future, because as of today, it's not within our means to do it. And I'm glad you brought that up in terms of asking yourself whether it's within your means, because I know with a lot of newlyweds, once you get married, you're thinking about that oneness, and you're thinking we're going to buy our own house, and it's going to be our home, and we're going to decorate it, but it's not within your means. And even though you're married and you want to be one, it's nicer to know that, okay, even though we want to get a house so we will feel a whole lot more united and start building our own home, because it's not within our means, we should just put it on hold until we know we can certainly do it, and then we go ahead and do it.
Right. I completely agree. Why add that extra stress if that's really not something you're ready to take on?
Yeah. Lately, I've been talking to some married couples, and one of the things that I find is they have difficulties setting boundaries with their families or with their in-laws. With you guys, did you have to set any boundaries with your in-laws?
Well, it's interesting because my husband is Cambodian. I am the most like Caucasian American girl you'll ever see. And so it's like this mix that we've got going on is pretty awesome, because I was welcomed with open arms into this whole new culture that I had zero experience with. And I'm not kidding you. My in-laws are the best people in the world, and they come from something that I could never even imagine. So to call them my family is pretty awesome. And I feel extremely honored to be not only in their family, but just a part of the culture in itself. It's probably been one of the most awesome things that's ever happened to me. And so I really can't say that there are any boundary issues. My in-laws are extremely respectful. They actually help care for our children. It's just like it's like a village. I've got all of these in-laws that are cousins, and I've got a sister-in-law, and my husband's grandma and his aunt and uncle. It's like this huge family, and everybody just helps one another out. And it really feels like you're kind of like this tribe, and you're just like, you're just this united front, and nobody could break that bond. And so I really don't have anything negative to say about my in-laws, but I know that there are thousands of people listening that don't have that same experience. And I would say boundaries are huge for many couples. And I would say before you get married, to have that conversation with your spouse about boundaries with each other's family members and what that's going to mean, because to be on the same team with one another rather than against each other with those issues is super important.
Yeah. So I know you are also going to school pursuing your master's degree in marriage and family therapy.
Right.
Have you encountered any studies about how couples or newlyweds or married couples can help each other tackle the issue of setting boundaries with their in-laws? Because I know it's something that a lot of couples struggle with, and because of that, sometimes some couples have to end their marriages. And I want to see from your perspective and from your educational background, like, what do you think couples can do to help each other alleviate this issue? Because For instance, like with us, what we do is I'm from Ghana and Ashley is from the US. So it's two different cultures, just like you guys.
Hmm.
And one thing that we do is my mom doesn't speak English fluently like I do. So if we have any issue or let's say we have anything that we need to relate to my family, I'm the one who talks to them and explains things to them, let them know that this is what we are doing, this is why we are doing it, and this is the way that we're going forward. If it has to be with my in-laws, actually the one that does the talking or explaining things to her family members. So can you share something that you think will help our listeners who might be having really tough times with their in-laws today with us?
Sure. So a lot of times, before you get married, a lot of couples will have premarital counseling. And I did not have premarital counseling. I think it's something that is wonderful. And I kind of wish we did, not for any particular reason, but just that I think couples counseling is awesome. And I think that you can strengthen your relationship so much more from that. And so I really believe that laying your expectations out to each other with those issues, because before you get married, you usually know where you stand with your soon to be in-laws. And so if that is kind of a touchy area, then it's always good to explore that before you get married so that you can kind of get on the same page, communicate your issues, communicate the hardships, and even bring the family together and say, hey, where we're having these issues, we really want to try to solve these before we get married, or even if it's after you're married, because what needs to happen is that there's this trust and respect between you and your spouse, and you want to feel like you're supporting one another. And so if there is an issue of boundaries, or the in-laws don't really care for the other one, or maybe even just the spouse doesn't care for the in-laws, that is such a strain on your spouse, who that's their family, because that's their life. That's who they've known their whole life. And so if people aren't getting along or there's boundary issues, that's just super hard on a relationship. Like you said, sometimes they end their relationships. And so I think that communication is absolutely key. And if you can agree to get on the same page and really just stick as a team and not try to shut anybody out yet, but solve the problems, I think that's really the best thing you can do for the relationship.
I completely agree with you. I know it's difficult, but usually if you know the expectations and you've talked about it and you've come out with a plan to decide, okay, when this happens, this is what we're going to do to deal with it. It definitely makes it a whole lot easier after you get married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So during that first year, I know you are from the US and your husband is from Cambodia. What was it like for you getting to know his family and his culture? Because I'm thinking they might not celebrate Thanksgiving over there, but in the US it's a big thing. Like, how did you guys get along based on your different cultures and different upbringing?
Well, my husband, although he was not born in this country, he was brought over very, very early on. And so all he's ever known is living in the US.
Oh,
So
okay.
so he's adopted all of the cultures and the holidays and everything, but his parents really have not. They celebrate the holidays usually just because their children do. So they'll just, they actually own a little grocery store here in town. And they don't close. They don't close on those major holidays. They're open and they work their full day of work, and then they'll come home and celebrate, Thanksgiving dinner with us. And it's like, it feels like the whole town is shut down, like the whole world is shut down on Christmas and Thanksgiving. But nope, their little grocery store is still open and going, and so they work very, very hard. I would say just because he grew up in the U.S. doesn't mean that he didn't grow up in a household of a different culture. He definitely did. And things that are important to me as growing up and that have always been really important to me weren't necessarily important to him because of the culture difference, such as communication. He wasn't a big talker. He wasn't a big explainer of his emotions. And although he's always been very affectionate, there wasn't a lot of communication happening all the time. So I knew that was something that for me, we had to expand on, and he's come leaps and bounds in how he communicates. And that's something that we've really, really had to work on. I mean, that's not been, I don't think it's a struggle only because we've been constantly making progress, but I would say that was a challenge in a sense. And I think a lot of that may have had to do with culture.
So with communication, not the struggle, but the communication challenges that you guys had. I know, like for instance, personally with I and Ashley, I know like men and women communicate differently. Apart from the whole cultural differences, it's something that
Mhm.
I definitely agree with. What did you guys do to help you guys take your communication level from good to great or from good to better?
Well, I am, as you know, I am working my way into the therapy world. So I can express my emotions and I write my emotions. I mean, I'm a very deep feeler and I'm sensitive and I'm all those things. So with him, I've always been very open and honest with how I feel about him and how I feel about our children and our family and his family. And so from the very beginning, I've been extremely open and honest with how I feel about him. And he so badly wanted to give me that back and explain how he felt. And it was sometimes hard for him to use the words or find the right words or explain how he felt. But because he tried, because I did it and he saw that I was doing it, he wanted to make sure he was giving me that same thing because he saw that I needed it. So I think if you can find what your spouse really needs, because that is so important, especially if you're going to be married for the long haul, to know what your spouse needs is really crucial. And I was very good at expressing what I needed, and so he was never left in the dark, you know. And if I ever felt like I didn't know what he needed, I was very clear to ask. I would always ask, and I still do. And it's a reminder for him and I that we always have to keep that line of communication open and honest.
So with what you're saying, I'm trying to comprehend everything. It looks like being able to express your feelings was what really helped your husband to be able to communicate better or work on himself to so that your communication level or communication skills between you guys will go to the next level.
Yeah, I think so. I think if at least one of you is really wanting to help the other one, I think that somebody does have to kind of meet you and step over that 50-50 boundary to pull the other one out and say, hey, like I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, you know, let's try this out. And he met me and he meets me halfway every time now. And I couldn't say that back then. I couldn't say that, you know, we've been together 12 years and I couldn't say that 12 years ago. So I would say that's just huge for us. And he always says, oh yeah, you definitely opened me up and got me communicating, you know. He's like, I never did that before, but it's because he knew that's what I needed. And, you know, he always says it's because he loved me that much. He was going to definitely try that. And it's worked ever since.
Yeah, I'm really happy it worked for you guys and it's really helped you guys to grow together in your marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the nice things or the exciting things I like about marriage. The fact that there are certain things that if you were on your own, you've been willing to go the extra mile to improve yourself in. But because you got married and you love your spouse so much, you're willing to go the extra mile to be able to improve yourself so you can have a really healthy relationship with each other.
Absolutely.
What are some of the exciting or fun moments or memories that you guys loved so much about that first year that if you were to go out to dinner, let's say tomorrow night or in 2 months' time, that you guys will talk about?
Oh, about the first year.
Yeah.
Well, right when we got married, we were living with like, I think two other couples. There was like six of us living in this big house, and you know, our priorities were probably like completely screwed up. And you know, we were two young adults that just got married, and we were having a good time, and we were both working and having fun, going on vacation. And then once we decided to have a kid, it was like, you know, put the brakes on. Like we got to go buy our house now, and we got to go get into like mommy and daddy mode, and everything just kind of flipped. It was like a complete 180. So, you know, it's a whirlwind when you get married and it's like the party's over of the wedding, and then all of a sudden it's time to like really get serious about what you want out of your life, and all the talking you've been doing all those years up until that moment, it starts to come to fruition, and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's all happening right now. And I would say those are the best moments, but they just go by so fast. And so we always talk about, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we chose to have a kid the first year we were married, because, people are like, travel and do all these things that you never, ever got to do. And you're going to have kids and you're going to be like, stuck with the kids all the time. And hey, we love our kids so much and we would never regret them. But I tell people all the time, yeah, why don't you take a year and travel and do all that? Because man, once you have that baby, it's not over. It's not over, but it puts a bit of a halt on things.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Like, I didn't think about it that much, but I've experienced it myself also. After we had our kids, like, I realized, okay, now we have a brand new baby. She doesn't know what to do, what to eat, what to wear, like anything. She doesn't even know how to sleep well. So it's now our responsibility to help our daughter or the brand new baby to be able to do all of those things. And if you are a responsible parent, you're not going to be like, okay, I'm going to just leave my baby on the bed and then go travel to wherever I want to go to. It's that responsibility that comes. So if you are married and you don't have kids and you want to travel, this is the best time to do it, because once the kids come, they come with a lot of responsibilities that will limit your ability to do certain things. And if you don't want to leave your kids in other people's care, it definitely makes things a whole lot more difficult.
Yeah, and that newness that you feel right when you get married, that really, I felt like it could last a whole year. It really could. Like that excitement, you get that momentum going, and that really could last a whole year. So, make it last and go do your magical things together that you want to do, and build those memories, just the two of you, because you'll feel close, but you'll never feel close like that alone ever again. There's always going to be, your children or whoever else you welcome into your family. So I just think that's an important time to take out for you and your spouse, if that's what you decide to do. And if not, then that's fine too. Everybody to each their own. So I would say that all across the board, it's just an exciting time.
Yeah, it's an exciting time when you don't have kids, and it's also an exciting time when you have kids, because they bring different experiences that you can enjoy together as a couple.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Were there any resources that you think helped you guys during that first year?
I actually have always referred a lot back to my experience with my own parents. And my parents were divorced when I was about 8 or 9 years old. So I have that experience to go off of. And I feel like I've learned so much from what they would call their mistakes. But I really feel like it's just life. Life happens, and we grow and we learn. And I definitely learned from it, even though I was so young. I lived it, and I reflect back on a lot of that. And I have brought that into my marriage. And it's funny because my husband comes from parents who are still married. So he brings a whole different dynamic and a whole different perspective. And it's like we really have created this whole world together, where I come with one set of knowledge and he comes with another. And we've combined it and really just like merged this whole family unit culture together. And it's kind of like one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced, because he's got so much to give me that I didn't have, and I have so much to give him that he was never aware of. So we are really constantly learning from each other and learning from each other's stories. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that have made us successful in our marriage.
Thank you very much for sharing these insights. I know having divorced parents is not easy, especially with everything you're going to go through for the years until you're able to live on your own. It's definitely not an easy period to go through. And you add that to everything that you guys had to go through, like with, two different cultures and two different upbringings. Like his parents are still married, and you don't have parents that are married. And, sometimes you might feel what really happened, why me, why did this happen to me? But even though you went through that period of time, you saw that, okay, this is what happened. I'm not going to let it prevent me from having a wonderful marriage and a unique experience.
Right. And I think that if you can just always be aware that your past isn't defining your future, it's really there for you to look back and go, "Oh wait, I could learn something from that." I think that's one of the biggest keys to being successful in life in any situation, and that we are not our past, and we are not those struggles, even though it's painful. It really can launch you into something so much greater, and you can take that with you and share it with the world.
I really appreciate like you sharing these insights. There are a lot of tidbits in here that when I put them apart, I can see, okay, this is something I can apply here. There's something I can apply there. There's something that's going to work great for just so and so, and I'm going to share it with them. And I'm really grateful that you're sharing all of these insights with us
Oh,
today.
thank you. Thank you.
So, if there was one thing that you wish you had known before you got married, what would it be?
Probably how much work it is. It's like maintenance. You have to constantly maintain this machine of sorts. And if you neglect it, and if like if it was a car and you just didn't change the oil, it's going to break down on you. You really have to maintain and nourish it. I think that being each other's supporters, and I always talk about being a team, because I feel so much like my husband is my biggest cheerleader. He's my teammate for life. I feel like we have these two children, and we are the only two people on the planet that love these kids the exact same, because you love your kids so intensely. But I feel like that communication and that support, it just helps to maintain a healthy relationship, and to be honest and just be true to yourself. And we're constantly growing, and we're evolving, and we're changing. And if you can support each other and get excited about those changes for each other, it's not going to drive you away. It's going to really bring you together. And if you really want what's best for your spouse, because what's best for your spouse is really what's best for your family as well. So I just feel like if you can just really support each other, communicate, be honest, and be that team unit, I really think that makes for a successful, amazing marriage. But it's so much work, and you really have to work at it. It just is not easy. And if anybody who thinks marriage is just going to be a breeze and that you should never have to work for it, that's a false reality. So you can be happy in putting in that much work in your marriage.
I know putting in the work is, how to call it, something that a lot of people don't want to hear. But if you look at the reality, that is what you have to actually do. You have to intentionally devote time and make your marriage a priority. You have to make your spouse a priority for you. So you guys can continue helping each other improve and become better individuals. Because at the end of the day, if you guys are improving yourselves and you're really happy and you have a really healthy relationship, if you have kids at home, they're going to see it from you guys, and they're going to learn from you guys. And that's going to help them to grow into really responsible individuals or adults.
Oh, I agree so much. I think that's the best thing you can do for your kids, is to show them, how much work it is, but that you're willing to do it, and how good it feels to be married to your best friend, and show the love. And I don't think you need to fight in front of your kids, but I don't think it's bad to have a little argument here and there either, and solve it. I just think that to expose your kids to the reality is a wonderful thing. The good and the bad, but you filter a little bit for your kids. You filter as much as you can, and because we want to protect our kids, but at the same time, they see the love. And if you can show them how much work it is, and like I said, be in it for the long haul, I think that's setting them up for success as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alison, for coming to share your first year marriage story with us today. I know our time is almost up, and you have to go and take care of your two boys again. Before we let it go, if let's say our listeners want to get in touch with you, or they want to reach out and say, hey, I listened to your podcast interview, and because of the story that you shared, I was able to learn a thing or two that I applied to my marriage. How best can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So the best way they can actually probably reach out to me and be engaged with me almost every day would be through Facebook, www.facebook.com/appetite for honesty. And then I also have my blog, which is www.appetiteforhonesty.com. And I'm on Twitter. So I'm on twitter.com/app for honest blog. And I'm probably on Facebook more than anything, but they can reach out to me on any of those social media sites.
Yeah. Listeners, I'm going to put all of these links in the show notes. So if you're driving right now, you don't have to worry about remembering them. When you go into the show notes page, you should be able to get access to all of these links and be able to say thank you or reach out to Alison for if you have any questions you want to ask her or you want to just thank her for sharing her story. Alison, I'm really thankful and I'm really glad that you were able to come on to share your story with us today. I know we've learned a lot of insights from you. If there was one thing that you want our listeners to do today to improve their marriages, what would it be?
Communicate. Definitely communicate. Yes. And open up, be honest, communicate with your spouse. I think that's the healthiest thing you can do, and do it every day.
Thank you very much, Alison, once again.
Thank you.
I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much, Marcus.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.